Welcome to the Soulful Marriage Conversations podcast. I am Elvie Riggins, founder of the 90-Day Marriage Plan, host of Marriages That Matters live talk show, life and relationship coach and author. Each week, I will bring you a guest, a thought, or deliver a conversation on hot topics and talks about the reality of real-life marriage experiences that will help you understand the truth about what it really takes to build successful relationships, so you can overcome your feeling of being alone, eliminate the fear of a failing relationship with your partner to experience a happier life and relationship. We don't have to live our lives unhappy in relationships. Instead, we choose to tap into our intuition and make the powerful choices to mirror our vision and become the solution for change to produce loving, supportive relationship in our lives. Get ready to have soulful marriage conversations. Let's go. Well, welcome to the Soulful Marriage Conversations podcast today with your host, Elvie Riggins. And we have a special guest today, Miss Ty Gayton. She's going to be with us, and our topic of today's discussion is what's love got to do with it? Now, I'm so excited today because Ty is a spirit messenger, and she has some special information that she's going to be sharing with us. But not only that, she's going to be doing a exercise with me today, and it's going to just show some of the skills that she has, and also she's just going to be really sharing with us the gifts that we have as far as when we talk about our spirit communication, divine healing, the arts of meditation, and she has a special offer that she will give to us at the end of the actual event, interview, but let me go ahead and just give a description or bio of Miss Ty. She's a big skeptic prior to 2012, where Miss Ty underwent a huge transformation and spiritual awakening, going from addict to spirit messenger in a few short months, taught primarily by God, her guardian angel, and spirit guides how to take care and protect herself as an empath and medium. As a divine channel, Ty has had the opportunity to be the conduit and communicator for God, Jesus, Mary, Buddha, Kuan Yin, archangels, Joseph, Elijah, and many more. These ascended masters and teachers have provided healing and teachings through Ty to thousands of people over the years. She is still in constant communication and connection with them. Ty recently left the field of practicing as a psychic medium and performing readings to create the online spiritual academy known as Messengers of Spirit. Now she is traveling the world offering her talents as a spirit-guided coach, where she supports others in their transformations with a combination of teaching, healing, and guidance. She is a special guest today, and I want to welcome Ms. Ty to the call. Ms.
Thank
Ty.
you so much. Hi. Thank you so much, Elvie. I'm so grateful that you're hosting such a beautiful platform. This is just a wonderful opportunity to connect with you and your audience. I am sure you have some wonderful listeners, so this is a privilege. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show.
Well, Ms. Ty, it wouldn't be a show without you today, so I just want to say thank you for giving yourself the opportunity to be with us, because we appreciate the opportunity that you gave us, so we really thank you today. The listeners, thank you. I'm going to just thank you for the listeners, because I believe in what you have to share, and I believe that it's going to add value to our listeners, so thank you again for that. Our topic today is about what love got to do with it. On today's discussion, we're going to find out what Ty the Spirit Messenger has to say about utilizing the arts of meditation, spirit communication, and divine healing. She claims that these things can drastically improve our marriages. She seems pretty confident, you all. She says that she's got the powers and the gifts to help me to earn more money of my own way and stop stopping myself. So I'm going to let her do a live demonstration during our broadcast today, and I am so excited about that, you guys, because as you know, in relationships, a lot of people have things that they bring into their marriages from past childhood or things that they have experienced or learned from others on their journey to adulthood, and it can create problems in their relationship in the present moment, and they really don't realize where this is coming from. So I'm just so happy, Ms. Ty, that you're going to talk to us about it. So let me just ask you for a moment, Ty. Tell me a brief story about how your life started, and then tell me about your journey.
Okay. Honestly, I had a very troublesome childhood. I was born to two parents that were both addicts. They actually met during a drug deal. And when they separated, it was in my first year of life, and I almost died from failure to thrive. That's where a child below the age of 1 is left in a crib and not, or left somewhere and not held, consoled, fed. And so my vital organs were shutting down, and I was ceasing to grow, to respond. And I was, on my first birthday, my grandparents came to visit and realized that my mom's, her coping mechanism in my father leaving was to disassociate from me, and she had just kind of shut down. So I was admitted to the hospital on my first birthday, where I was there for about 3 weeks. And then the whole family at that point kind of jumped in to restart my desire to live. So my beginning right out of the gate was a bit of a struggle, and even moving on in life, I really was challenged with a lot of heartache and poverty, situations that were way beyond my control. It was just the environment that I was born into. So as you can imagine, as a young adult, that life circumstances was basically just the struggle that I had been. I was playing out what I saw and what I knew best. Chaos was my norm. Those imprints that you were talking about, that whole chapter in my life was very, very messy, very sad. And I ended up with, problems and addictions of my own, and kind of a repeat relationship person. And the bottom line of the whole thing is I genuinely had, I did not feel as though I deserved love. And I think that was imprinted in that experience that I had as a newborn. And then that was the theme of my life that just played out over and over. So when we say what's love got to do with it, literally it's been my center. It's the core of who I am now. But it was the core wound, I guess you could say, I had since birth. It was a major theme and an issue. So I actually had a suicide attempt back in 2005. When I came out of the hospital from that, I woke up with such a purpose and a will to live and do something with myself and really break this cycle. And I became a kind of like a daycare preschool teacher, and then an administrator. And I think that's where I found my groove. I just love teaching. I love teaching little people, and it really helped me to see. I got to heal a lot of my own wounds, being a mentor and a positive influence to these children. I ended up showing up as the person that I always needed in these places. I think in some way I was able to really serve and gain compassion. I ended up being a parent of 3 boys of my own, and that really changed the tide in me identifying how these things link up, and really started to retrain my brain with thoughts of that chaos not being my norm. Then what is it? Then what else is available? What else is out there? And I actually had an aunt suggest that I try meditation, and that literally saved my life and changed my life. But I have to say, I kind of laughed at her when she mentioned it, because I always thought meditation was that very stiff Buddha posture and, very disciplined and with your legs crossed. And I was like, I don't think that's what I need. So I started out with just some guided meditations on YouTube, and balancing chakras was a really big thing, and connecting with guardian angels for me was a very big thing, because I didn't know much. I was a big skeptic about all this woo-woo stuff. I didn't really understand it. I didn't have a mentor and really anybody. So for me, I just thought if there is a positive entity like a guardian angel, if that's real out there, that's what I want to connect with. And probably right in the first few months I even tried meditation. I met my guardian angel in meditation. My sons met, because then I started passing the headphones around the house. I'm like, you got to try this. My sons met their guardian angels in meditation. And then the teacher side of me just came out. Everywhere I went, I was talking about meditation and guardian angels and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So it really took that seed being planted of meditation showed up almost simultaneously with kind of my world falling apart back in 2012. And the relationship that I was in shattered, the house that I was living in shattered, the job I was working fell apart. And the only thing that was left was for me to really take a good look in the mirror and find out why I had this addiction to pain pills and alcohol that literally no one knew anything about. I was extremely high functioning but self-medicating constantly, and nobody knew. And God kind of cleared my plate so that I could focus on that. And the meditation was my gateway out of the dark. And I prayed like nobody's business. I asked, I begged to be healed in every way. And truly I got my wish.
Oh, my goodness. All I can say is wow, 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 wow.
Yeah.
Your story is an amazing experience, although you've had some challenges, although you went through a lot. But, one thing that I've learned, that the greatest thing that you are experiencing in your life is actually the thing that you need to be teaching. And I'm trying to reflect back all of these things that you shared, because you shared a mouthful. And you talked about when you were a baby and you started, you was actually left, and you had to, you basically almost had a near-death experience there. And then later on in your life, you almost had another near-death experience. And what I heard you say is that there was a transformation in the process of that second near-death experience that you had, where you really came in to connect with yourself and really just kind of go on this little journey, and things started changing for you. Now, I personally know someone that close to me, a family member, they had a near-death experience, and I watched and observed their life, and I noticed how their life traumatically changed from that experience. Yeah. So I want you to share with me, what was that like for you? Because how is it that a near-death experience really got you on track to making these, traumatic decisions for yourself that really helped you out?
Right. Honestly, I was really sick of the person that I was and the cycle that I had been in for so long, and my mom was still living it. So I was a few miles from her watching it. I could see the future of what I was going to be and what that was going to look like and become, and I wasn't having it. And honestly, I feel like my life purpose was calling me at the same time. So I really got this question in my mind that was, if not this, then what? Because all I knew was the pattern, that hamster wheel, the cycle that I had been in, but I knew there was something more, but I didn't know what that was. And I had a lot of monkey chatter, inner critic, mind stuff going on, that stuff that gets imprinted on you, and stories that aren't true, that nobody cares, and it won't make a difference if you're gone. I had a lot of that, just chaos in my head. And so it was just like, if not this, then what? And I knew I was meant for more. I knew I was meant for something, and I knew I wanted to do something good with my life and be able to support my children. And so it was just like, what can I do? Where can I go? And there was somebody mentioned, offering classes, because you had to take several years of early childhood educator training to go into the field that I was in. And that's where I just started learning about the development of the human brain, the human body. And, it had been discussed in my family. There was a lot of family members that were very upset. Ty, did you know that you were diagnosed with failure to thrive? And I didn't really know what that meant because I'm 5 feet tall, and I've been lucky to be 100 pounds throughout my life. So I just thought that meant that I was little. I was sitting in that when I discovered my life purpose, I'm sitting in that classroom. I'm getting the training for early childhood development. When I read the description of what failure to thrive was and connected the dots on what had happened, I'm telling you, I had to leave class early and cried all the way home. It made so much sense to me. So, yeah, that life purpose calling me, and I'll be honest with you, I hit the financial ceiling when I became an administrator in that child care field very quickly. I was always a straight A student, even with the chaos going on growing up. And, with work, it's kind of the same. I strive to do the best that I can with any task I'm given, and the same thing with child care. So I went from beginner to administrator within a couple of years and topped out at the financial end, and I was leaving it. I was leaving that career field to go into the medical arena for financial reasons, and it was not a good career move for me at all, and I ended up miserable and didn't understand what was happening. Yeah.
Wow. So that experience that you had, is it safe to say that it was leading you to your life purpose?
Definitely. I mean, I'm still teaching. I opened an online spiritual academy. So that for me, I feel like my core soul purpose is teaching, healing, and guiding people. And I think that, and for me, I have to do all three. I got stuck in a rut where I was just doing the readings, and I felt like I was missing an arm or a leg in my work. It just wasn't working for me. There wasn't enough balance. And I'm really passionate about the transformations. What I can tell you, because being a reader for so long, one of the top 3 questions I would probably get asked is about life purpose. And Archangel Michael would normally answer this question through me, so I can definitely share with you. I believe that our life purpose is made up of some core ingredients. Like for me, I said it's teaching, healing, and guidance. And I believe that we can be called to perform that life purpose in many different facets that we choose. I feel as though I asked God to utilize me as his vessel and shining light, and to put me on the highest platform that I could go, because I'm willing to be a living demonstration of God's love, God's grace, God's healing. I'm willing to do that. And so that's why I feel like I'm being provided this platform on your show and doing the work that I'm doing now. But I could have kind of settled, per se, and stayed in a classroom somewhere at a school. But I was willing to be very transparent and vulnerable about what I've been through. And I think that gives you a higher ladder, a step ladder to be on with maybe a wider audience, depending on how deep you're willing to go, how vulnerable you're willing to be.
Yes. I mean, I think that's a beautiful story, because so often I see people go through the changes in their life and transformations happen. And sometimes I've seen it early on in my childhood where people had dramatic situations to happen, and then it's like their life does a 360. And so I was wondering, is that sometimes how God gets us, it gets our attention to get us on track, because we're so far from him, and he has to get us on track because we're living from the past experiences, and now he has to get us in the new space to where our life purpose is actually supposed to end up.
Definitely, I think that's one part of it. I can honestly say that I've talked to a lot of people that, because of my situation, I've ended up talking to a lot of people that have had near-death experiences. And I don't think every 2 people are exactly alike, but what I can tell you about for myself is I really feel like I came to understand my mortality in that moment, and that I felt like our days are numbered and we never know how much of it we have left. And at that point, in my opinion, I had wasted almost 30 running in this hamster wheel and wound up in the chaos and repeating a pattern that was horrendous. And I was just ready to be on purpose, to feel good about myself, and to be passionate about my life. And I was just tired of, I just wanted to break out of that mold. And then I realized that each day is a gift and how much I had been taking them for granted. So I am really a person that drinks in the nectar of every moment now. There's
That's
not
wonderful.
a flower smell or a sunshine ray that passes by me without my gratitude.
Oh, wow. So you are really living life on purpose, and
Yes.
that's the key. That's the key.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, all of this thing is about, you've really shed a big light on about the life that we live today as women in relationships. At first, we have to acknowledge that our relationship with ourselves is so far more important for us to get together and really be in a congruent and alignment with that in order for us to actually succeed in the relationships that we have and actually the relationships we choose. So without that piece, there's no way that we can connect to a person and be completely whole for ourselves without feeling like we need that other person to complete us.
Agreed.
And so,
Agreed.
And so I see that you doing that work, you going through that trial, it really helped you because you did mention that you had some experiences with some relationships that were not good for you because of what you grew up in and how you were, the things that you saw. So tell me a little bit about that experience for you in that those relationships, and how did you actually change? What was the few steps that you took in order to change the way you perceived a relationship and what your values were?
Well, I think I practiced what I saw, and I don't want you to take this like I'm putting the blame anywhere. I just think the environments that we grow up in have leave quite the impression about, how relationships are supposed to work. And so I modeled that behavior. I had a grandmother that was the doting wife to a very, alpha male. He was a fire chief, and this was the healthiest relationship that I had, and so she waited on him hand and foot. And then the situation in my own personal house, my mom would just get into relationships with people that were, abusive and steal money, and lots of chaos, lots of drama, lots of abuse. And so I translated that to mean that what I want doesn't matter, or I come last, or I couldn't be still when things were calm. I was looking for a problem, even when there wasn't one, because that chaos was my norm. I would just be very uncomfortable to be still. I would just remember I had a relationship that actually wasn't all that bad, but I was almost picking fights because I didn't understand the calmness. I didn't know how to translate that. I felt like there was some reason for it, some meaning behind it. So, and then there also was relationships with abuse. I can tell you that I literally became a different person inside each relationship. So to break that cycle, that really happened, like I said, back in 2012, and I just asked God to heal me in every way. My original prayer was, please teach me to love like you do. Because my love was possessive, it was jealous, it was angry, it was ferocious. My love was unforgiving. My love was harsh. Demanding, commanding, and I was just like, God, show me how to love like you do. And I spent a couple of years by myself, and that was the first time in my life I had ever done that. I had been in and out of relationships since I was 16. I was a mom by the time I was 18, and I was one of those people just hungry, thirsty for love. So it was a big deal for me to be in a relationship by myself. I also ended up going through some classes that teach you about the cycle of abuse, like domestic violence cycle, and I realized how much of a part I was playing, not only as the aggressor at times, but then also the quote-unquote victim in the scenario. And so I identified all these incredibly unhealthy things and habits and dangers and things that should be red flags. I used to think that when I told someone, don't call me, and then they did, that was a sign that they loved me, that possessiveness meant that they really cared. So I was used to people disrespecting me, and I really misunderstood that to be love. So I spent a couple years by myself, really getting to know who I am. That's where this revelation about even the teaching, healing, and guidance, like that being in my center, being love, I discovered so much about myself, and I got to a place where I knew my purpose. I knew what I was passionate about, and I knew I was good at, like, this was something I was on fire and zest for, to be a servant of God and to speak about God's grace. I realized that I wouldn't compromise that for no one, and I would never allow anyone to ask me to. So I feel like I just really came into my own, and I realized that if there was somebody out there for me, that they would be a match in that vibration. They would either maybe do what I do or complement it in some way. Maybe we would both be in service to humanity. There was a time where I, became open to relationships after that, and I was feeling really good about myself. And I dated a firefighter for a while, and he was kind, he was respectful, he was gentle, complete opposite of what I had ever known. And it didn't end up being my forever lasting relationship, but it was the first healthy relationship that I ever had. And even when it was a conscious union, I was continuing to do work on my personal stuff when it came up. I was able to ask this person calmly for what I needed, what I wanted in the relationship when it was something that was his, like his role. And then when we decided to part, it was a decision that the two of us came to. It was almost like we just got to the end of the road in the relationship, and I said, I don't think I'm the best person for you. It was such a 360 moment because I was the one that would hang on way past the ripe stage, the bad ripe stage of a relationship. I would be the one afraid to let go. And I was so sure about myself, and I had such faith in God and Spirit to take care of me and this person, that when I knew that we weren't right for each other, I knew it was the right time to let them know that. And we made that decision to part together as friends.
So, Ty, I have to ask you a question because I heard what you said about in the beginning how you was talking about your grandmother, your mother, and how they both kind of were different on two different ends of the stick. There was an aggressive, there was a little bit more passive or something.
Yes,
and so you had a mix and blend that you learned a little bit of both from both of those individuals that were in your life that were influencing you. So when you got into these relationships, you were acting as if what you had saw and what you learned from those characters. So my question to you is, in this relationship that you was in, and you found that he was a great person. He was something different from what you had already been used to dating. And you said that he was a nice person. The things that you asked for, you knew how to ask him and receive it from him. And he would actually show up in that manner. And you said when you all came to an agreement. Now that's the part that confuses me. You all came to an agreement that that you weren't the person for him. So tell me a little bit about how were you able to determine, what was the reason that you determined that you weren't the person for him? Because it seems like up to that point, you were on the right path of standing in your power. So can you break that down a little bit for me?
Sure. Hindsight is amazing. But leading up to the end of that road in that relationship, I wasn't aware that I was very much in a mentorship position or role in that relationship. We were not equals. Yes, we were both passionate about our service. We were on purpose in our work. We were both really good people, and we had a lot of things in common. But he found out he was adopted while we were during the course of our relationship. He had a bunch of different things going on personally, and every step of the way, he wasn't sure which way to go with certain things, and I was doing what I do best and spending a lot of my time telling him how he should handle problems and what he should do with them. And so I ended up in like this almost parenting, mentorship, teacher role, in our relationship, and there wasn't that equality there. And so I found myself realizing that I need to step back, give him his own room to handle these things, trust that he could. At the same time, he was displaying behaviors he was saying things that was obvious that he didn't see the quality of my attributes in the relationship. Like, and he would say things like, oh, this is such a terrible, I'm just going to get to the dirty so you understand. Because this was a defining moment for me. He was one of those people that kind of grew up in a family where he consistently got what he wanted when he wanted it. And so sometimes he would display these behaviors where it was almost like an adult temper tantrum when, when he couldn't have what he wanted when he wanted it. And so we were he had gone on for a while about wanting a pickup truck and a dog. And our house that we were in was not suitable for a dog. Our lifestyle was not suitable for a dog. And financially, we were not in a place to afford this brand new pickup truck that he wanted. And we went to a park one night, and it was me and one or two of my boys with us. And we parked next to a big black truck, which is exactly the make and model that he wanted. And there was a man walking to the truck next to us with the dog that the person I was with wanted. And he slammed his fist on the hood of my car, and he said, "See, I never get what I want." And I had a moment where I said, I'm not going to stand next to a man and call this, because we were talking about getting engaged or married. I will not call a man my husband that has language like that with me standing next to him. If he doesn't see the prized possession in sharing space with me, or is so hyper-focused on wanting something so badly that he doesn't see the gift in the life that he has now. Because it's not just about me, but it's also about being present and aware of what you've got in totality. We were just not a match. I mean, that's just an example, but we were just not a match. And I just felt like there was somebody. We had so many different likes and dislikes between us. We were doing our best to make it compatible, but as the years went on, it was less and less compatible. So I went away. I had a death in the family, and I went away, and I asked myself, why am I in this relationship? What am I receiving? What am I getting out of this relationship? And it was the family dynamic. It was the firefighter thing was familiar. It was what I'd grown up in. And it was that sense of family. I love family. I love having family around. And, a lot of my family where I was living either had died or moved away. And this person, I saw them as my family. And when I realized that God could take the place of that feeling for me, and I had tons of people around me that were like family, and I could reach out and be more in contact with my family in Ohio, I said, that's not a good enough reason to hang on to this person and keep them in my life. So when I came home from the funeral, I said, I don't think I don't think I'm the one for you. I don't think this is the right match. And so, yeah. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's the truth.
That is the truth. And what I see is that you really stood up in alignment to what it was that you truly wanted. And that's making a powerful choice. And that's one of the things that I actually really speak about a lot, about women making powerful choices. And sometimes the choices don't always feel good, but they're so powerful that they make a significant change in our lives, that we are able to connect deeply with ourselves. And that's exactly what you did. You went deep within yourself to really find out what it was best for you. Because I see that in the beginning, the relationship seemed very well, and then you started seeing his the way he was projecting things that was inwardly, outwardly. And what I'm seeing is that when you say you were not the match, I see that oftentimes we get in relationships and they are, on the surface level, they are great. Right. And then when we get on down the line, there are things that we can contend with because he's doing this, he's respectful, he's this, and then there's those moments, just like you said, where he didn't know how to come to himself to realize that, okay, there's certain things that I got to give and take in this relationship. But when I can't have my way or can't have what I want, I need to be able to handle myself in such a way that it's honoring my relationship and respecting her presence and how I want to show up. And because he wasn't there, that means that he wasn't in a place where he actually was ready for the relationship himself. He needed to work more deeply on himself. And that is so powerful that you were able to see that early on. But for those women that they went forward, say, for instance, if that woman continued to move forward into that relationship, she didn't even acknowledge these little moments that happened.
Right.
And then she moves forward and she marries this individual. And that's something that you could have done, but you chose the other route, which was the better route for you. The thing that I want to address so much is that you still have the authority to still choose, even though you made a choice that may not have been to your the most valuable decision that you could have made for your life. And I want you to go into this, because I heard you mention that you connected with God, spirit communication, that even in our lives today, in our relationships, and we made some bad decisions. How can you share with us how you connected with God so you can get continual guidance in your life?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I spent that, year and a half, 2 years in the apartment, and either God or the angels taught me a lesson every single day. God and I would play games. I know that sounds so silly, but I literally have journals and journals of the conversations that we've had, and they'll be in book form at some point. We're not there yet. So that is, I think, again, I'm just an example of what anyone else can do. What I can say is, for me, divine source is most easily accessed through our heart space. When I take a couple of deep breaths and I allow my focus or my attention to kind of settle down right where my chest is in my heart, and then I just start talking to God, or I speak to God. Sometimes I even imagine, you're going to probably laugh, I'm such a 80s kid. I imagine because the heart chakra is supposed to be green, so sometimes I imagine the Emerald City from The Wizard of Oz, and I'll go in there and kind of have my own little green castle and have a conversation with God there. Because we've had such a hotline for so many years now, it doesn't take much for me to get in that space, to ask for guidance, to ask for advice. And I'll be honest with you, my prayers are usually me conversating. My meditation is usually me listening.
Yes, powerful.
Yeah, so it's about learning how to be quiet in the mind and listen to the heart.
Wow. And that's such a powerful thing. I know that in my journey of life, I have came into contact with understanding meditation on a more deeper level, and how to really, really clear the thoughts in your mind, and how they will, if you allow those thoughts to run rapid, they will just tell you anything. And so in my relationship early on, I had all of these crazy thoughts that were running through my mind, and I was always saying to myself, I feel like a dark cloud was following me, because all I could think about was the problems and the situations I was going through. And it took me one day that I just decided to say, what is it that I'm doing wrong? And I began to because I could not hear anything, because I had so much negative going through my mind, and I wasn't focusing on just clearing the thoughts out. And so, but one day I finally got a hold of that. I really was able to connect to just really getting quiet and sitting with myself, and I heard the voice speak to me and give me guidance about my relationship. And that was so transformative for me, because that was the moment of, like, I finally was able to open the doors, open the gates. That was that was something that I always wanted. But however, it wasn't like I never had that before, but it was just a season in my life where I could not really tap into it, because I was so overwhelmed and so stressed with the relationship challenges that I was just I had totally cut myself off. I actually called it, because I did a podcast about chaos, living in chaos, and I actually shut myself off from hearing from God. I call it, I was dead to myself, literally dead. And I feel like when you're not really spiritually connected or in tune, that you are actually dead. You're not really, you're not getting the guidance. You're not being directed. You know, I mean, me living every day, waking up, I was just really in a low vibration. I mean, everything was just low, low, low. And so when I really got to that place where I could hear, I heard the voice, I was able to get the guidance I needed, and things in my life changed drastically. So I thank you for sharing that. But also hit a little bit about the divine healing portion of it, because I had to go through that healing part too, from those wounds that you carried. And I know that you probably experienced a lot of, you already had it from childhood, but then also relationship-wise, you had some hurts and pains and things that was challenging for you. So how did you go through all of that healing?
Well, I think a good part of it is like what you said. It's asking and then allowing and then believing it was possible. And so watching myself come back from the dead, I don't know how many times, whether it's, spiritually, figuratively, or actually, there was a time after my guardian angels started speaking to me that they suggested that I had the power to heal in my hands. And and I thought, again, I was a skeptic, so this sounded like woo-woo stuff for the masters. I was like, what do you mean? And so I thought that meant they wanted me to get some training. And if you learn more about my story, the fact is I've never actually been certified or formally taught. Spirit trained me on everything, and then they would introduce me to human beings that were doing this stuff, because I still had doubt in my mind, even though my angels said this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I was like, okay, but is this real? And so then they would send me to an actual person that was teaching this stuff. And I'm like, she's doing the same thing I was still shocked. She's doing the same thing I am. They're like, yes, she is. Because yes, she is.
Oh, my
goodness.
So
each one of us have the power to heal. It comes from the divine essence inside of us. It's like locked in our heart space. And with just a couple of deep breaths, you can either ask God to do it, you can ask yourself to do it, whether this is an emotional wound, a physical healing you'd like to see happen in your life. It could be the conditions, your environment, whatever. You are the healing portal for yourself. Even when I do energy, divine healing for other people, all I'm really doing is activating or waking up their own divine healing mechanism and powers. Sometimes it's almost like reminding the subconscious that it has this ability. Sometimes in my meditations when I'm doing healing sessions, I actually see switches that I'm almost like the main power switches in your home. That's kind of the imagery that I get, that I'm putting people back online. And I can't even tell you how many people that I see with energetic, where they've gone through a heartbreak of some sort, loss of a loved one or death in the family. They're literally turned off. The valve almost energetically in their heart space is turned off. This turns off their self-healing powers. This turns off energy in their life, like they'll be drained of passion. And this shuts down their intuitive centers, so they don't get their gut feelings. They don't get that divine whispers that nudge you. They're just completely numb or shut off. A lot of times I see people in that space self-medicating. So one of the things that my angels taught me when they sent me down this path, teaching me how to heal energetically myself and others, they asked me to go back and visit the infant that I was in the crib that was not being cared for, not being held. And I sent loving, healing, divine energy to the infant child that I was until I heard her laugh.
Oh, wow.
And ever since, I've never cried about, I used to bawl like a baby when we would talk about that condition or that situation in my life. And ever since I visited myself, my former self, in a meditation and sent that that unconditional love until I heard a baby laugh. I've never shed a tear about it since. So in some ways, I feel like that closed that wound about being left, not feeling loved, that whole thing. And then I've done the same thing, almost like going back in ripples in time with certain situations in relationships. So it's a little bit of a imagination, a little mixture, a little combination of kind of some woo-woo stuff. I've taken the steps that my angels have asked me to try. There have been different things that God's told me as you might find this really interesting, as I was taking internal inventory, all that dark stuff that a lot of us don't like to talk about, whether I was jealous or possessive or unforgiving. And I really asked God to help me shift, because remember my goal was to match my vibration to match my personality to the essence of God. I want to love like you do. I want to be that source of unconditional love. And so I was just constantly asking to be shown and be up-leveled and to that understanding, that awareness. And so God spoke to me and said, I'm literally transforming you from the inside out. And literally the wrinkles and lines on my face disappeared. I don't know if you're going to put up a headshot, but I'm over 40. And people all the time mistake me for, well, you're super young looking too. But I looked actually 10 years older 10 years ago. Like, it's amazing to me how much younger and how much better I'm feeling. I was a lot sicker back then. I was diagnosed pre-diabetic, hypothyroid, asthma, irritable bowel syndrome. All of that's gone. All of it's gone. But it's from doing, in my opinion, taking that internal inventory. There's stuff that we all have that's not so nice, not so the things we don't like to talk about. And to me, it almost reminds me of those beach balls, that we try to hold underwater, and they just go and keep popping up. And for me, every time I see one pop up, I take it as a sign. It's time to deal with this. Let's do it. And I feel like between spirit and the divine healing, I have the powers to, and I'm not afraid of it. Nothing is scarier than where I was.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Girl. That's what I'm talking about right there. You said that, because when you can look back over your life and you can look at where you were, and now that you're standing where you are now and you're free, there's nothing like being free.
Yeah.
And girl, but
I'm serious.
I feel you when you say about dealing with those things when they show up, because I've been doing a lot of awareness, and that's one of the big things that we have to be in relationships with ourselves first. Is aware of what we're feeling, what's showing up, what's going on. Is something constantly coming coming to our attention that we really need to address, that really could be showing up in our relationships as a conflict, and we don't really realize that this is a problem. And so for me, that was one of the things that one of the many things that I really had noticed that in my relationship is that I am this person that I really don't like to spend money. Not only do I not like to spend money, my husband is the opposite. My husband is the opposite. He has no problem with spending money. He loves to buy things. He spend money like it's nothing. But for me, I would notice that we would end up having conversations about, you don't like to talk about money. You don't really like to spend money. And I noticed one day that I was in the store with my daughter, and I was buying something, and it was a very low-cost item. My total ticket price was about $15, I would say. And my daughter looked at me, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "You look mad." And I had to catch myself at that moment and realize that I was really upset because I didn't want to spend the money. And that's one thing that I noticed that our conversations that keep coming up in my relationship is that, hey, let's do this. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. And so I'm finding myself being challenged with that, in the present moment, that maybe this is something that I really need to address. This is something that I really need to face, because actually it is becoming an issue for me. Because when I go to the store and I'm ready to buy myself something, I would say to myself, I want it, but no, I'm going to put it back. So going back, rewinding back a few years, what I did was I said I wanted to go on this little journey for myself where I just wanted to take a break from spending money on, clothes, things that wasn't a necessity. So I did it for a whole year, and it worked out wonderful for me. I stopped buying things. If it wasn't a necessity, I didn't buy it. I didn't give myself permission to buy it. And when I came out of the, I call it a fast, when I came out of it, when I started going to the stores, I looked at things and I said, oh, I don't want this. I don't need this. And so I find that to be an ongoing cycle. That was back in 2007. Now, I only did it for a year, and I wasn't trying to punish myself. It's just that I wanted to create new habits and a new way of looking at things. But I see that from 2007 to this day that I still carry on the same way. It's the same pattern that now when I go into stores, I have a problem with purchasing things for myself. I won't buy myself things. And so throughout that journey, I'm looking at, in my life, I've had some financial struggles. And I'm like, what is this thing that I have combobulated together and created all this bondage for myself, because it doesn't feel good. And it's not really helping me in my relationship, because of the fact that we have the disagreement sometimes when it comes to money conversations. And then I see that it is conflicting. It's conflicting for me is because there's things that I really would like to do for myself, but it challenges me because I feel like, well, really I don't have the money to spend, or I don't really need it, or if I do it, it's going to take away from something over here, so I better not spend it. And then I look at other areas, like I'm looking over all the years of work, and I see that there is a ceiling that I can't seem to break past. And I'm like, well, what is this? So I want to know if you can if you can help me kind of work through all of this madness when it comes to money in relationships.
Yeah. This is one of those areas I love to help people and to serve in. So I'm just going to throw a couple of things at you. I want to preempt this by saying there is no quick fix with this system, because this is part of our programming. This is our default system, and this stuff gets implanted in there by society, what news you're watching, what beliefs you're paying attention to, what feels like it resonates with you because of what was imprinted on you in your childhood before you were 7 years old. A lot of our money patterns and behavior was introduced to us before our 8th birthday. A lot of us have no idea. We're usually carrying out a pattern that was shown to us back then, and those are really hard to break loose, to shake loose. So when I work with someone in a coaching capacity on a money issue, we usually enter in a long-term agreement, because I almost basically have to unravel what's been done, and we have to create a daily practice. One of the first things I do is I ask them to think about their money story, and we do a fun exercise with it, because this is pulling up somebody's weeds in their backyard. They don't want to talk about it. It's, money is related to emotional issues. It's very closely tied with our connection to love, our association with love, and our association with God. And so I see very similar patterns with money, love, God, very similar patterns with people. And so sometimes I can get people to change their perspective and their wavelengths when I tie it in with love and God, because people are very open and accepting to love being warm and friendly and kind and inviting. But sometimes people treat money like it's the enemy and not the answer, you know what I'm saying? And so that's one of the areas that we go into. I have them relate their previous money story, the story of money in their lives, to maybe like a sad love song, and just so they can kind of identify the history of it. And then we rewrite a money story, and this becomes part of their literally daily meditative practice, because you literally have to reprogram yourself. And the whole first 3 weeks, you're re-editing your money story, because your life and the circumstances start changing with the story that you're inviting in. And sometimes you're like, maybe I don't want to be eager to pay my bills. Maybe I want to be happy to pay the bills, because eager kind of has you in a place of standing and waiting and ready to do it, but not quite doing it. So anyway, I have had some recent edits with a client, and so we've gone over that together. So I want to say I am happy to help you shift your focus a little bit energetically and maybe wipe some things clean. But I need you to understand, for you to have a long-standing commitment to your prosperity nature, chances are you're going to need to do a little digging in your backyard, and then we're going to need to sow in some new seeds to develop a new habitude. And, and because you are in a conscious marriage, there may be a chance that both of your languages and behaviors might need a little bit of a rewrite. I'm not sure. I can honestly say that for the sanity and the security in my house, when I changed my money story, my partner also changed his. We kind of almost did it together, so that we had the same story coming in the house. And, he had great ideas for his. I had great ideas for mine. So I'd really like to invite you to think about those imprints before you were 7. But if you're open to it, I'll connect with Spirit and see what Spirit's advice is for you. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine.
Spirit saying yes, your language around money needs to change. Okay. Hold on. Long lasting. Okay. Spirit's talking about how you kind of, when you made your efforts to do a shift, you kind of almost became indifferent about the money, and then there was resistance with that. Spirit's saying almost like you treat it like it was a bad smell, like you're just letting it kind of go by you. So there is an essence there of not really wanting it to touch you, good or bad. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just kind of like, okay, so let's see what we want to do about this. Okay, so Spirit's also saying this is a lineage thing. This is like, he's giving me the example. If it's not 100% accurate, it's relative in the meaning, like your father to his father to his father. So when you unravel this issue, you're going to be going back generations on it, which is great, because you're going to break the cycle, and you're doing it, for your children also. Okay. So I'm also being shown your heart space. And so what Source is providing me as an image is that you literally have almost like a bank vault of fortune. I'm seeing like this bank vault, huge door opening in your heart space, and inside it is just a pile of gold, money, and Spirit really wants you to start to ask, how do I access this fortune, this gold within me? How do I tap into this fortune and gold within me? Source is talking about you being a light to others, and sometimes you're afraid to shine that, and that's also bumping up against your prosperity level. You're not wanting to be too big, too loud, cause too much attention, and this is also limiting your income. You're going to have to stand up and be okay with being noticed to generate the funds that your universe says you have an ask. So you have a dollar amount that you would like, that you're kind of like in your heart is being asked for. But Spirit's acting like you're going to need to respond with an elevated, I'm ready, like to stand up and say, I'm ready to do this. So just know that you're on the verge of meeting that. Okay. So Spirit's asking me to kind of step into your heart space in this moment, and I'm visualizing this stair step. And I'm kind of visualizing you climbing this set of, it's almost like a step ladder. We're not going too far. It's about 3 steps up, going up on this step ladder and saying to yourself, I'm ready to shine. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to step up. And know that it has, he's talking about it having meaning, and it is going to alter the outcome of your experience right now as you know this. As you know, like life and your circumstances being. Spirit says there's going to be a timeline given to you for when where you're gonna set goals and do this. I feel like you're going to be stepping away from where you are now. It's going to be a bit of a crossover. Okay, so Spirit's saying you're having some doubt. Almost like you want to see this income generated before you make this transition and this crossover. Spirit's saying it's actually, y'all are going to have to compromise a little bit on the trust and faith a bit. You're going to create a timeline where you walk away from something to do something different, and Spirit's wanting me to assure you, like arms out, I've got you, you're not going to fall. Spirit's also talking about wanting you to not sabotage yourself anymore. So we're going to work on this. Hang on a second. And so the images I'm being shown, Spirit says she's so doubtful that she's going to get this right, that she's going to do something wrong, that she's almost checking her map all the time. It's like showing me you out in the forest trying to figure out which way to go, and you're taking a lot of stops to check in to be like, is this right? Am I going the right way? How many steps do I need to take before we make a left? Like you're just really internally touching base a lot. And I have an intuition masterclass that Spirit's actually, it's free, that Spirit's actually wanting me to have you, it's like an hour-long tutorial video. Spirit's saying you don't realize how in tune your internal compass is. And once you realize that how much of it you're using, you'll really have a sense that you can't go wrong. And God says, I've redirected you enough times. You always know the answer when the time's right. Hold on. Okay, so right now there actually is an energy download being given to you by Source. I'm actually seeing a clearing happening at the back of your throat so that you feel more confident asking for what you want. There is also, what is this? I'm seeing like almost like a change machine in your heart space. And it started out literally, it looks almost like one of those machines that you get change out of, like at the laundromat or something. And at first it was spitting out coins, and then it changed to dollars. So again, I feel like this is just like a metaphor. Your ask is going to get stronger and more powerful, Spirit's saying, because you're going to have meaning behind it and intention. Are you journaling each day?
I journal. I don't journal every day, but I do journal.
Okay. Spirit's wanting to know, are you sensing anything like in your chest or in your heart space right now? Take a deep breath, and you might feel this along your back, your spine, or even top part of your belly.
Yeah, in my belly area, my abdomen.
Okay. I'm literally watching Spirit kind of like chime in and refocus you so you'll have this answer. There's this big question, of knowing when the time is to do this or knowing when the time is to do that. And I'm literally watching Spirit put inside your internal guidance system, your intuition, a clock that you're going to hear and feel go off like bing, loud as a bell. You'll know when it's time. So you'll have that certainty and that clarity around it. Interesting. This was fun. He's still working on you. I'm going to ask that you drink a lot of water because this transmission is going to last for a few days while you go through the shift. And I'm also going to ask that you sit down and journal the thoughts that come to you because I think the answers are going to become loud and clear about what's been holding you back and what Spirit would like for you to do differently in your ask. But because we worked on that throat chakra, when you go to ask someone, yes, I would like to invite you to come work with me as your coach in a business, proposition. You're going to feel a lot stronger about the amount of money that you're asking for. And I feel like Spirit's showing me you have a hesitancy when the numbers are in the thousands of dollars, and that's where we went from coins to dollars with the change machine that I saw in your heart space. So I almost feel like Spirit wants you to practice that in the shower a few times before you get on the call to do the ask with somebody. Like, I asked for $4,000 to work with the two of you, and that is because, because I'm offering you this transformation. So this is also something else that I work with people on long term, like I said. So it may take you a little bit of time, but feel free to reach out to me if you feel like, I would be a good support person for you.
Yes.
Take a deep breath and tell me how you feel and what you think.
I still feel that area in my abdomen. And what I'm thinking is everything that you're telling me is totally in alignment because I've already been led to these things that you're sharing with me, and I can totally understand what's being said. And oh my God, it's just like when he was saying the intuition, like he's already been giving me things already. I knew that, but it's like when you said about the doubtfulness, I'm like, yep, that's me. So I constantly do that, yeah. So that self-sabotage, I do that a lot.
Yeah, there's a hesitance. There's a wait. I'm not sure yet, and not being sure if the timing is right. And I literally saw like that old bell-style alarm clock that goes, you know what I'm talking about with the two bells on the top? When it goes off, it's like really loud. That's the kind of alarm he's going to have for you screaming inside that says, it's time to get up. We can't wait. This is it. So I just want you to feel very certain that you're going to know when the time is to act because you're getting extra support around that. And the your Powers of Intuition Masterclass is my free gift to your audience. It's amazing. Seriously, it's one of my. I'm so darn proud of it. It's one of my best gifts to humanity to date. I believe intuition is something that we're all born with, and I'm actually a little disappointed in myself and the other early educators in the world that are not teaching children, maybe even us parents too, not realizing how important it's almost like a sense of smell. We all taught our children to smell a flower. And I remember that moment for the first time, and I taught so many children the difference between soft and hard and rough textures, but never once did I teach my children how to listen or pay attention to their intuition. And it is the same essence. It's the same thing. Their body sensations. It's a language. It's and it doesn't have to be evil, woo-woo, scary, dangerous. It's a wonderful tool. It's our internal GPS. It tells us when we're hot on the trail or when we're off track. And, everybody says, listen to your heart, follow your heart, but we never had one single class about what that's about. And so because I was such a skeptic, I created this master class with a little bit of science because I need that for my logical mind and reasoning. But I didn't go too over the top with it because I'm not a scientist. I'm a teacher at heart. And so I do give you the understanding that the heart is the primary reason that we have intuition. There's an electromagnetic field around it, and that heart creates all those sensations, whether it's the goosebumps on your arms, that gut feeling, even the ability to see out of your mind's eye. All of that comes from being intuitive. And comes from the heart place. So I created an hour-long video. I don't even waste any time. It's like grab your pencil and go. And I explain it to you in the most simplest way that I can. And I've just gotten such tremendous feedback for people. So please, I know you're a busy woman, you've got essentially like 2 or more jobs and a whole family. But when you have the time, please sit down, spend an hour, and that's my gift to everybody.
Well, we thank you so much, Ty, for that, because that's something that I do teach the women to just learn how to tap into their intuition. So that is a perfect gift for this audience, because we all need to learn how to tap into our intuition and make the powerful choices when we're able to do that. So I thank you. This experience for me has been so evolutional. I feel like I have totally evolved in just a matter of moments to really just feel that connection. I think it's just confirmation for me to understand that I'm on the right track, but it's something else that I need to do that I've been lacking. And once I step into that and begin to do that part of it, I feel like I will get in alignment to where God is leading me to. And I do appreciate, because it was some things that you spoke to me that someone else had already spoke to me, and it was confirming what you were saying. And I was like,
sure.
Well, God, there you are. That's
yeah.
What, you said something about I think you said that you can't go in the wrong direction or something something to that nature. And it was like, I was told that before, and it's like, why do I sabotage? Why do we sabotage?
It's a internal behavior. I have a whole program built around it, to be honest with you. And the bottom line is, I'm going to give you 2 main ingredients without giving away my whole program. I'm going to give you 2 main ingredients. Identify what you're afraid of, because that's why the saboteur shows up. It thinks it's going to save the day for you, and really it ends up ruining things before you even get to it. So figure out what you're afraid of. If you can identify that, you're going to be a long way. And then the remedy is to set a positive intention for yourself. A lot of people are very unclear about how to create an intention. I even coached a doctor one time, and I told her to set a positive intention, and we would go over it. And when she showed up on the call, it was a list of goals a mile long, and I was like, oh, dear. So I ended up attaching onto the program how to generate or create a positive intention. So those are 2 things that would be massively in your favor. And self-sabotage, that's a whole other show, Mama. Like, we could.
It should.
It really is.
You are so right. You are so right. So I appreciate you so much for joining us today and getting into this exercise. There was one thing that you said, and I wanted to ask you about it.
Sure.
You said, oh, that's fun. And I was trying to figure out, well, what is that she saw, or what was that she was picking up when you said, that's fun?
I'm not sure. Spirit shows me a lot of the communication that I get from Spirit, at least for today, which it might even be the way when you get a lot of messages, are they pictures?
I get a lot of dreams.
Okay. Because a lot of times I end up tapping into, like, your divine support team, and however they communicate with you, that's their language. However they communicate with you is how they end up communicating with me. And so for today, a lot of the language they were using were visual imagery. And so I'm not sure. It was somewhere between the bank vault and the money machine, and you outdoors with the map, checking your route and your directions, and are we there yet, and when do I turn left? It's somewhere in there. I'd have to go back and listen to it again, because I kind of go into channeling. It's like me narrating a movie. I'm not even sure where the comment came from.
Yeah.
But it's been my pleasure talking to you. This hour has just flown by.
It has, and it's been a pleasure talking to you as well. And I know the audience really has enjoyed it and has got a lot of nuggets from this interview here. As Ms. Ty has stated, she's going to give the audience a free masterclass, and it's called Your Powers of Intuition. And I'm going to make sure that I include that in the notes, the showcase notes. And so be sure to connect with us there on the showcase notes, and it will also have where you can actually contact Ms. Ty. Ms. Ty, you can find her on Facebook. You can find her on Instagram. She's known as Ty the Spirit Messenger on Facebook, on Instagram. And also, you can do some spiritual support on Patreon at Ty the Spirit Messenger. I will go ahead and include all that information on the actual showcase notes. But if you have really enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to share this episode with a friend or with friends that you know that this will be of value to, and it would really help them out. If they need anything, feel free to reach out to Ms. Ty. As I stated before, she will be, her contact information will be in the showcase notes. But again, if you have not already subscribed to this podcast, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review.
And we see you on the next episode of Soulful Marriage Conversations Podcast.